Everyone, what is going on? What is going on? Welcome to the broadcast. This is That Man Show. My name is Curtis Brooks. I am your host and executive coach, specializing in transformational leadership for men. Guys, we got a powerful show for you this evening. I am super excited. But before we get into that, I'm going to give you some more details about the show here. We're talking about, are men looking for the mama wife? Can you fix him? So now, ladies, don't get caught up with this now, because this is kind of a little twist here. So I've got something for you as well, ladies. But nevertheless, we're talking about, are men looking for the mama fix? Can you fix them? So before we get into the broadcast, guys, I want to let you know that we're streaming to multiple platforms, such as LinkedIn, which is our main go-to platform. And we're also streaming to Substack. And you can find me over on Substack at Brooks Curtis over on Substacks. That's the @ Brooks Curtis on Substack. And also on YouTube, that's going to be at Men's Life Coaching over on YouTube. Again, the @ Men's Life Coaching over on YouTube. So bear with me, guys. Kind of get the broadcast going here. Make sure you can see it here. All right. We got her up going on LinkedIn, and we're going to make sure we see her on Substack here. Okay, we are on Substack. Make sure we're muted. There we go. All right, guys. So got all those engines going there. And so again, we are streaming to multiple platforms here. We also have a men's challenge that's taking place, and I want to get these things out of the way here, so do some things a little different here. So we got a men's challenge that's taking place April the 1st, I apologize, and I'll put the link on the screen here for you. And it's called United Impact Challenge, and this is a 30-day challenge for men. And so you can go to that link there, you can see it on the screen, bit.ly/United Impact Challenge, and it's a 30-day challenge for men, and you'll find out more details about that challenge as well. So that being said, guys, once more, we're talking about, are men looking for the mama wife? Can you fix them? Now, this topic here is going to be very interesting. So it's going to be provoking, and it's going to challenge some of you as well, and hopefully challenge you for the best, and for the best, the change, I should say. But it's definitely going to provoke you. Now, I want to give you some background on this mama wife, and perhaps you don't need any background, but I think just for clarity. So it says here, the mama wife phenomenon. All right. The mama wife dynamic is a common pattern where the female partner takes on a maternal role. Okay. Some of you ladies may have already dealt with this here. All right. And the male partner regresses into the childlike one. This is a shift that is often gradual and unconscious, but it can transform a romantic partnership into a dysfunctional child relationship, parent-child relationship. Now, it's interesting because oftentimes, and I don't want to say that it's okay, because it's not okay, but you have to understand it from this perspective, ladies. As men, we are coming from a space where we've spent a considerable amount of time with our moms are obviously just created to be nurturers, amongst other things, but nevertheless, innately they are nurturers. And so when a man moves on to a space where he's dealing with his wife, girlfriend, or significant other at the time, he can be in a place where he's gotten comfortable for a time in a life, or a time in a season of his life. Perhaps that was behind him, but nevertheless, he can find himself enter into relationships and not necessarily expecting or looking, but he can find himself in a place where he is looking for a looking for a mama, so to speak. And obviously, the man doesn't come out and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a mama. I want a mama and a wife." Sounds kind of ridiculous, but it happens. It happens. And so I want you to understand the reason why it happens. And obviously, it can be a lot of different things going on here, but understand that from a perspective of the son who's nurtured, fathers are often seen as the fun parents. From a traditional relationship, so to speak, men are working and they're coming home and when they get home, they're typically just dealing with the child, or the son dealing with their children in a way where, hey, it's playtime, it's fun, it's kind of, hey, I've missed dad, whatever. And so the moms are known mostly for the nurturing. And this nurturing piece is what often continues for the man well into his adult life. And now there's nothing wrong with a woman nurturing a mother nurturing her son. But the challenge oftentimes for us as men is that we have not learned how to deal with our emotions, and mostly we have not learned how to set boundaries. And in most cases, the boundaries that we set are the boundaries that we see, or the limitations thereof, that when we're dealing with our mothers. And so consequently, what happens, we enter these relationships, we enter into these relationships as men who are not necessarily looking for mama wives, but the woman has a tendency to take on the role. Now, we've got some stuff that we're going to be talking about in regards to the woman as well now. So don't you dare think that this is just about the men, because it's not. Ideally, this conversation is about us as men and women looking at ourselves and coming to a place where we're ready to be aware of what's happening. Be aware of this dynamic that's happening, and that we can heal ourselves, because after all, no woman wants to marry a man and also be his mother. That's not what any woman wants. I don't think so. But we also have to, again, understand these things, that the dynamics, that what's happening under all of this stuff that's taking place. So the man is typically not going to come out and say, hey, I'm looking for hey, Sharito, thank you for joining over on LinkedIn. So the man is typically not going to come out and engage in a relationship and say, I'm looking for a mother. That typically doesn't happen. But what does happen, because the man does not have the wherewithal, the capacity in most cases. Now, this is not to, I love being a man. I love the skin that I'm in. So this is not about tearing down men, but it is just a reality that most of us, if not all of us, not all of us, but most of us, are searching and looking for something to be fulfilled. There's a void that is not being fulfilled. And when that void is not being fulfilled, or has not been filled from our families, the foundational level, so to speak, when those voids have not been filled from the foundational level, we as men and women are looking for someone to fill that void. we're expecting that void to be fulfilled because it is natural, it is nature, it is part of all of us. And so when that void is not fulfilled, what happens is that you have men at times unable to control their emotions because it's typically not what they've learned from home, especially with being around mom for just hours upon hours throughout the day. And so understand that when these things are taking place, you have men you have men who will, in essence, embody a lot of anger because they don't know how to deal with their emotions. And oftentimes society has made room for women to be emotional and say, hey, she's a woman. That's what women do. And it looks mighty strange when men are coming from this space because ideally it's not something that we are we feel that we have permission to do. And in most cases, it looks weird to see a grown man having a fit or just having a bad day. And it absolutely happens, but it's just kind of just a societal view or perspective that's been given for all of us. And it's what we expect in most cases. So now a couple of points in regards to this. I'm looking at some of my notes here. So it says, oftentimes the wife, she shifts from the wife or the lover to the mother. Okay. And there are things that are taking place with the man as well because of this shift. Okay. So here's my notes here. It says, for the woman who shifts from the lover to the mother, she's often taken on all the domestic responsibilities. Okay, almost like that son who's with the mother when he was at home, where he took care of all the responsibilities, or his mother took care of all the responsibilities. Managing his life appointments and social calendar. Oftentimes women can get caught up in doing that. Now, I've got some stuff for the women as well, so it may sound kind of harsh for the men, but understand that ideally, most of us, a good majority of us, are missing something, ladies and gentlemen. And that something are just the natural things like love, attention, ensuring that we're just where we have not been abandoned, we've been considered, others are thoughtful, and we are considerate towards us. And so all these different things that are natural or just part of nature, taking care of someone, when these things are missing, it causes a shift. But it causes not only in us, but it causes a shift in the other person. So the other person also, in the case with the man, he regresses. He goes back to almost like that childlike. So for the first one, it says the woman, she takes over all the domestic responsibilities, and the man, he becomes passive independent. He often becomes passive independent. Secondly, it says that managing his life appointments, social calendar, and his social calendar. This is the responsibility that the woman often takes on. And again, she's gone from the lover to the mother. All right. For the man, it's avoiding responsibility and decision making, because now the woman is covering this ground that the man should be covering. But again, oftentimes when we as men have had mothers who have taken care of our calendars, made sure the bedroom was clean and all these different things, and just doing what a mother does, and oftentimes protecting her son, the result oftentimes it's nothing wrong with mothers taking care of their children, obviously, but the challenge is that before he can come into being the man that he needs to be for his household, come into his own identity, oftentimes men are going to travel this road here because you don't know when you're that young man leaving home and you're trying to figure out life, you will absolutely come into this place. And if you don't come into this place, you're entering to relationships from a space of anger, of what you didn't get. So having toxic relationships often are a result of the things that the voids that we're missing because we're angry that we didn't get them. We feel sad because we didn't get them, or just a host of different emotions because we didn't get what we wanted. And so it's either one or two things here. As a man, you're entering into a relationship from a toxic perspective, already ticked off that you didn't get what you wanted in life, or in most cases didn't get what you from your family. You didn't get those things from your family. And so the burden then is often placed on the woman. And I'm not saying that it's okay. That's not what I'm saying. But oftentimes the burden is then placed on the woman to provide those things that the man did not get. And now, here's the flip side of this now. Let me finish this chart here. So for the woman who is shifting from the lover to the mother, nagging and criticizing his behavior. This takes place now, right? So think about this now, ladies and gentlemen. When you've been in a relationship, and especially for us men, we can often think or question ourselves of why do I feel like I'm treated like a son? Now, it can be a host of different reasons, but ideally, it's usually for us as men. It's something that we have not dealt with, or we have not received from our fathers. Again, ideally, the mothers play the more nurturing role, and in most cases, especially from a traditional mindset or traditional family foundation, if you will, the fathers have known to be working out, making a living, and mom has been spending time with the children. And so what happens is that, I believe, this is just my opinion, what happens is that the weight of carrying a household can make the woman super critical. But as a result, again, she could be critical for reasons, and it doesn't mean that it's not merited. But my opinion, the criticism could come from, again, the load that she's carrying. And in carrying this load, obviously, she, again, just my opinion, you get the nagging and the criticizing, the critical stuff and things that she might say. But conversely, what happens is that it causes the man to take on a role of a son. One, because in most cases, he does not know how to put up his emotional boundaries, or he does not have those boundaries that he's familiar with. Because again, from a traditional family perspective, he spent a considerable amount of time with his mom, And again, as I'm explaining this, I'm not trying to justify this nor say that it's okay. I'm just giving you the nuts and bolts of what's happening. And it's important that we understand this, because when we can understand this, we can be prepared to diffuse some things. And perhaps you are in a relationship that mirrors this right now. So if you're not ready to end that relationship, and you're, for whatever reason, hey, this is your man, this is your guy, that's not what I'm suggesting is to end the relationship. I'm just, again, sharing information with you that's going to help you come into a better understanding of what's going on. Now, the challenge would be for the woman is to, she would have a difficult time trying to get her husband or significant other to step up to the plate and be the man, so to speak. I'm using that very loosely, but it would be difficult for her to instruct him on how to be the man, because right now at this point she's exhausted. So she's got to have either a strong temperament and some major patience and just some serious work in the communication area, because now she's got to convince him to take on roles that he, in most cases, hasn't taken on before. Because now, remember now, the man has come from home dealing with his mother. And I'm not necessarily talking about just a teenager who was 18 years old. He's coming from home and now he's starting a relationship. No, I'm talking about grown men, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about grown men, as I will get into conversations in regards to the women as well. Now, this is an equal conversation here. We're not about tearing women down, tearing men down. This is an equal conversation, because at the end of the day, we've got the other half of this conversation as well. Can you fix him? And so that's the conversation, and just in a little bit, we're going to get into about the women as well. So again, we've got an equal conversation here. We got that's word kind of evades me right now, but nevertheless, so for the woman who shifts from the lover to the mother, loss of sexual desire for him. Perhaps this is the reason why he might cheat. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. This might be the reason why he might cheat. But she has lost her desire to be intimate. And for the man, he has seen her as a maternal figure, not as a sexual partner. Now, I don't know about you. I'm just going to say this, put this out here. Again, I'm not advocating, but for a man who's being nagged at, criticized on his behavior, that would absolutely, probably for me as well, take my appetite away as well. So I don't know, but nevertheless, and in ways it's merited. Again, as I stated earlier, one behavior, one response, or how the woman responds, and then how the woman responds is like a domino effect, and it causes the man to go back into a place where he's regressed, obviously, in this particular situation. So now he's acting as a child, not because he is a child, but he's acting as a child because this is just what has been pulled out of him, because he, in most cases, does not have the wherewithal to defend himself emotionally. Now, from an emotional perspective, he obviously doesn't have the experience. Because again, I'm not talking about an 18-year-old that has come home, that has left home and now is entered into a relationship. I'm talking about grown men at times not having the capacity to express themselves because it was not shown at home. They didn't get it from home. And even for the moms, oftentimes, as mothers will express themselves, it's not necessarily the healthy way to express ourselves. And so these different patterns of expression that we as men and how we show up oftentimes is a direct result from our home. So it's not about blaming anyone. It's understanding that our communication styles or their lack thereof, or how we deal with things from an emotional perspective, they come from somewhere. So when you're looking at that man and you're, for the woman, when looking at that man, you're criticizing him and nagging him, know that in most cases, and put yourself on that chopping block as well. Know in most cases that neither one of you have learned how to communicate, especially if you come from a home where, especially if you come from a home where there was a lot of yelling or just your mom giving dad the silent treatment, dad giving mom the silent treatment. These things are real, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not a wonder how and when we as young people or as adults start relationships, we're wearing the same garments that our parents wore. We're practicing the same way, we're practicing the same style of communication that our parents did. To include myself. So I'm not saying that I've arrived or anything like that, but to include myself. Change and becoming healthy or looking at life's decisions or making healthy decisions and life's choices. It takes time. And sometimes we have to be prepared to pause in this thing. Hey, Brother Wayne, thanks for joining over on LinkedIn. Just really quick here. Brother Wayne says here over on LinkedIn says, Brother Curtis, psychologists use attachment theory to explain some of the phenomenon you speak about. Absolutely. How early childhood experience developed or failed to impact their partnership relationship. Later works on both genders. Absolutely, Wayne. Absolutely, absolutely. So the term Wayne is saying here, it's the term is called attachment theory. So that kind of just explains it, kind of gives it some more, put some more meat on the bone there. So again, he's using the term attachment theory. And so it is important, and just as I've stated earlier, is that both men and women are affected by this. So it's not a dig on the men, nor is it a dig on the women, but it is an opportunity for us to know that, hey, this attachment style that I might have or that we're dealing with, we can be healed of it. And I think that before we even get into that, it is important to know that, again, this is not a dig on any one person, not for the men or for the women, but it is to just be aware of what's taking place. Be aware of the operating system that's behind the scenes, so to speak. All right. So that's important. Mm-hmm. Okay, Wayne says over on LinkedIn, he says, example, chaotic parenting homes normalizes that love is chaotic. Absolutely, Wayne. Absolutely, man. Thank you for that input. Absolutely. And now it is important, on the heels of what Wayne just said, it is important to understand is that what we put into this bowl, if you will, of just, let's just say, life situations, what we put into this bowl, is going to give the output of what you put in there. So if you put something wild and ridiculous, untamed, unmaned, or just not disciplined, without understanding, and there are times where obviously we're not going to understand everything, but even because we don't understand it does not mean that it's not going to produce results contrary to what we're expecting. Even when we may have the best of intentions, it can absolutely still produce just ill results that are contrary to what we're expecting. And the thing about it is that if you don't know, you don't know. If you don't, and again, most of what we're going to come into making certain changes is going to be through understanding. And in most cases, to take hold of this understanding, we're going to have to be prepared to grasp the idea of just pausing sometimes. We're going to have to grasp the idea of being prepared to have certain talks, especially about our backgrounds. Especially about our backgrounds. So now let's talk about the fixer. The fixer is, most cases, the woman, and not to say that the man can't be the fixer, but in this particular situation, the fixer is the woman. The fixer mentality is the belief that you can change the man for the better. It is a romanticized idea that your love and support can transform a broken man into a partner of your dreams. However, the reality is that you can't. You can't change anyone who does not want to change themselves. Now, let's look at this a little deeper now. Even for the women. For the women, it's something that is missing too. For the woman. For the wife. Now, women do have a tendency to say, hey, let me fix this guy up. Let me make some changes here. But for the relationship where the man is not necessarily looking for the Momma-Wife, she is placed in that role. She's placed in that role because the man is deficient. She places herself in a role of the fixer because she's also deficient in certain areas. Now let's talk about the fixer. The fixer normally sees his potential, and she wants to help him achieve it oftentimes. She sees his potential and she wants to help him fix it. And the other side of that coin is that the harsh reality is that he has to want to change himself. Now, this can place a lot of stress on relationships now. Hey, Cyrus. Thank you, Robert, for joining over on Substack. Thank you, Cyrus. Now, this obviously, and either way, it can place a lot of stress on a relationship. It can make us rethink relationships. It can make us think that we're, in most cases, especially for be it man or woman, it can make us think that we're better than the other person. And we can become burnt out, easily burnt out. We can tire ourselves of relationships where feeling that we have to fix someone. It says the desire to feel needed and valued. This is for the fixer, the woman. This is for the fixer, again, the woman. Her desire to feel needed and valued. Now that is a need for all of us as men and men as well. But for the woman, those needs are ideally expressed differently. Again, in this situation here, the woman believes that if I can fix this guy, he's gonna become the man that he needs to be, or the man that I want him to be. And then when he becomes the man that I want him to be, he's also going to desire me all the more, and I'll be even of a greater value to him. He's going to see me, he's going to value me even more. And so oftentimes women will go through these relationships for the sake of the end goal or the results of what it could be. Again, that potential coming into something that's full blown, or that becomes fruitful, and it now they're millionaires or something like that. I don't know, but nevertheless, that is the idea. That is the idea. So the harsh reality for that piece of it is that the woman often has to understand that she is not his savior or his therapist. For the fixer, the woman, the belief that your love can heal his wounds. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mamas often feel that way. Let me take care of my baby. Let me fix him up. Let me mend your wounds. You know, the woman, the mother that's overprotective. And again, as I spoke of the man earlier, these same traits that show up for the wife, they were absent in her household. She didn't get them. Perhaps she didn't see that her mother was valued. Perhaps she didn't see that her mother felt like she was needed. And so a lot of times we have to understand that there are a lot of conversations that go on within a household throughout, just years, 20, 30, 40 years. There's a lot of conversations that take place. And if not the conversation, it is the mannerism, it's the overall behavior. So from one household to the next household, one might be more talkative, another might be less talkative, but yet more expressive in their behavior. Now, in either way, in either case, in either situation, the results are the same, because one person is going to come out feeling like they're missing something. Again, perhaps mom or dad were not talkers, but yet they more demonstrated, showed a lot of expression. But yet another family, there was more talking. Now, in either situation, each person comes out with something missing, regardless of how it's expressed. They come out with something missing. And it brings that new couple, newlyweds, or the couple that's been married for 25 years to a place where if man or woman have not dealt with their emotions in regards to the man being able to facilitate conversations in relationship to the family dynamics. Most of how we treat each other, most of how we talk to each other come from our family dynamics. These things are absolutely foundational. And when we fail to understand that, we can find ourselves thinking that it's just so different. All my situations is so different, and almost as if there's not a fix for it. There absolutely is a fix for it. It's understanding that where you and I are right now, it is a result or not. It is a result of, in most cases, the family structure pertaining to our relationships. Now, for the woman who is taking care of her husband and she has lost intimacy, the idea of wanting to be intimate with her husband, that just is not going in that direction for her. For the woman who is criticizing her husband and seeing him as almost like a son, and he's feeling like a son, it's the family dynamic. For the woman who is trying to fix the man, trying to, where she sees his potential, nothing wrong with potential. But again, we have to remind ourselves that in most cases that you can't fix him. He can't fix you. Hey, Charlie, thank you for joining over on LinkedIn. Appreciate you. So we have to understand that as much as we can look at the man, because I posed this question for the title of this conversation, I posed this question purposely and intentful in a bizzle conversation. Yeah, it is, Charlie. Yeah, man, it's a lot to this conversation, man. It really is layers to this conversation, man, for sure. Absolutely. But again, pertaining to our individual situations, absolutely, man, we have to be prepared to look at the family dynamics for each of our situations. And a lot of times, we can find ourselves wanting to, our own psyches, let's just face it. Sometimes we can find ourselves wanting to start over, and where's that no one knows us. I think there was a Cheers theme song or something like that. But but nevertheless, we can find ourselves in our head wanting to start over. And the challenge with that a lot of times is that you're having to create a whole new personality, so to speak, a whole new persona that has no foundation anymore. So we've made ourselves unavailable to fix our current situation or to look at the foundation of our family and how things had taken place, or the dynamics of our family structure. And when we find ourselves unavailable to being prepared to dissect those things, yeah, for sure, Charlie. When we can find ourselves being prepared to, unwilling to dissect those things, unwilling to make the proper assessment, unwilling to get our hands dirty, because ideally what's taking place is that we've got to immerse ourselves in the water. We've got to get in. We can't just stick our toe in the water and call it a relationship. And this is for man or woman, husband or wife, girlfriend or boyfriend. If you've had a series of different relationships, look at the family dynamics. Look at your own family dynamics. And it comes a point in a time where we know that friction, just people of different views and opinions, things are just absolutely normal, and that's okay. But in order to make something work, someone has to make room for the other person. And I know that it's not always easy. It's not always easy being able to make room for the other person because we've got our own stuff in the way. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, but I would venture to say that there's been a host of different relationships that probably should have worked, and equally a host of different relationships that should not have worked. But for the relationships that should have worked, we get to examine ourselves. Because in most cases, the relationships that did not work, we weren't willing to examine ourselves. Let's face it. It's not easy to examine ourselves. It's not easy to take the scalpel and cut our chest open and examine our heart. It's not easy. It's not easy to admit that we were wrong sometimes. And so what happens is that we have the woman trying to create the very thing that she was missing, that she didn't get. She's now trying to create it. She's trying to build it, build a man, because she didn't get it. Perhaps she didn't see it in her father. Perhaps mom said some things that mom shouldn't have said. And when mom said those things, it took away the it changed the child's perspective. It changed the daughter's perspective. It changed the son's perspective because mom said some things, or the father said some things that he shouldn't have said. It begins to chip away at the veneer of who we are as mothers and fathers. And so when we lived in those households where it's been a lot of arguing and just a lot of bickering and going back and forth and calling each other's names, hey, my household was not the greatest either. But I've also had to be prepared to learn some things. I've also had to be prepared to pause. It's not always easy, but I've had to be prepared to pause, because in the pause is where I can really think about the series of events that could take place if I've said the wrong thing. Now, historically, I'm going to go out on a limb like this. Historically, women obviously in most cases are the ones who spend the larger amount of time with children, and obviously raising children can be it is a lot of work. It's not easy, and there are different situations for each of the women who will raise kids, and some women have given birth to children at a young age, and now they're children raising children. Again, a host of different situations. But ideally, when the emotions are not in check, you end up saying things to your sons, your daughters, And when you say those things, we don't know how they're going to receive those things. I've got a 2-year-old baby girl here at home with me. And I absolutely have to be careful what I say, how I say it. It's not always easy sometimes, but I have to be mindful of some things. Because I don't want my baby girl to feel like if daddy is upset at times, maybe something completely unrelated to what, dealing with her, nothing to do with her. But I have to be mindful of how I address her. Again, it's not always easy because life is happening to all of us. So that when I'm addressing her, I am not coming off where she's feeling rejected. Because I'm irritated about something, again, maybe completely unrelated to my daughter. And so what happens is, as parents in our respective households, they've said certain things that really have chipped away at how the sons view their mothers and how the daughters view their fathers. And so consequently, you have the daughters trying to build a man now because the daughter lost respect for her father because the mom chopped her dad up so bad. Or again, this behavior over a period of time. And again, it's not for me to say that those conversations were merited or not. But nevertheless, the insight, the view, how our children viewed those conversations or the words that came across the airwaves there, it gave them, it created a picture where the daughter in some cases didn't respect men because mom had dad looking like just said some awful things about dad. And dad may have said some awful things about mom, where now the son doesn't respect women. So we absolutely have to be mindful of that. And I think, again, when we're dealing with people, be it the man or the woman, who have not been healed, who are not ready to do their respective work. I've shared this before here. We're kind of coming up on the hour here. I've shared this before with a client and with a good friend of mine, actually my brother Wayne here. We've talked about this before. There's a valley that each of us have to walk through. And it doesn't matter who you are, what your social status, economic status is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter. There's a valley that each of us have to walk through. And oftentimes, well before we can come into understanding who we are, who you are, we've got to consider certain things that we didn't always understand. And here's what I mean. This valley is comprised of our past, not just our past, but our mother, our father's past, the things that they did not deal with. Inevitably, we have to now deal with those things. For the things that our parents did not take care of from that emotional perspective, where that we might be dealing with, for the men, we might be dealing with anger. That's a big thing for a lot of us as men, myself included at times. We might be dealing with anger. And for the women, oftentimes they might be dealing with passivity, not being able to speak up. But somewhere along the line, you didn't come out the womb just being passive, but you and I, as men and women, we picked up those things, fragments of our lineage along the way, things that were not dealt with, where now we're having to deal with those things. So if you're ready to step into a place where you're ready to come into knowing thyself, you first got to get through the valley. And that valley can be a difficult place. It's a scary place. And when I'm saying scary, what I mean by scary means that it's just a place of unknown. It's a big question mark. And this is a lot of times why a lot of people don't do the work, because the work that needs to be done is not necessarily so much just surface level, where the man might get angry and say, oh, he's got an anger issue. But in most cases, that anger may have come from way back there. And the man has to be prepared to walk through that valley and deal with why he's angry. He has to be able to come into a place where he has coming into a marriage, so to speak, with his shadow, the shadows of the past, so to speak, and to the person that he is now, or how he sees himself. He has to be prepared to marry the two, not out of judgment. Not out of judgment. Now, it's the same thing with the woman. So that's why I say that what we're dealing with a lot of times, if not all the time, we're dealing with the sins of our father. That's the best way I can say that right now. And sin does not mean that it does not mean that our parents were horrible people. It means that there are things and mannerisms and mentalities, mindsets, if you will, that we have now taken over as part of our DNA. And we have to be prepared to dismantle those things, because those things at a particular time, they serve their purpose. They serve their purpose, and we have to be prepared to dismantle those things. And in dismantling those things, we have to be prepared to walk through this valley. It's an unfamiliar place, because in most cases, we are still just dealing with the surface level things of our own persona, the things that we see, the things that we know about. But it oftentimes, again, as I mentioned about this pause is huge, because as we're going through certain things and dealing with life, the ups and downs of life, this pause brings us into a self-check, so to speak. The pause brings us into a self-check, a super really quick assessment in the pause. And when we can find ourselves starting to respond to those pauses, then we'll find ourselves being able to hear the things that are taking place, because so much of life in this current state that we're all living in, so much of life is just responsive rather than being proactive. It's responsive. And so let me look at my notes. I haven't looked at my notes in a while here, so let me get back to here. So understand, again, this is not a dig for men, and or because I have an issue with being a man. Absolutely not. This is not a dig towards women, or because I have an issue with women. No, this is about healing. That's what this is about. This is about being aware of what's taking place, again, in that operating system that most of us can't see, that subconscious. Okay? So the common thread here for each of us is that we got stuff to work on. We absolutely have stuff to work on. And I think Charlie says here, he said earlier there was an abyssal, abyssal conversation. So there's absolutely a lot to this conversation that can be discussed. But also know that we're not here to solve the world's problem. We're here to solve the thing that's in front of us. And also know that when we can solve our problem, in most cases, we'll find that the very thing that we solve within ourselves, someone else is also looking for the answer. And you and I might even have the answer. So again, there's a common thread that we all share in regards to just that healing journey. But most of what we're dealing with, we have to be prepared to look at the family dynamics. We have to be prepared to look at the shame that we might be dealing with. We have to be prepared to look at the jealousy and all of those things. And before I sign off here, I want to share this thought because this came to me earlier. Is that oftentimes here's the thing with men. Here's the thing with men. A lot of times, oftentimes because a man is not up to speed in relationship to who he is as a man, having a solid foundation or belief system. And again, this is neither right or wrong, but because he's not anchored in a particular belief system, what happens is that he has a tendency to those different things that he may be dealing with are disqualifiers in his own life, or what he has determined to be disqualifiers in his own life. Those things have a tendency to spill over into the life of his wife, significant other, his girlfriend. They have a tendency to spill over into those relationships. And when they do, the man, in most cases, a lot of times he can be dealing with jealousy of his wife, jealousy of his significant other, jealousy of his girlfriend, because he is not the man that he feels he needs to be. He can't really put a finger on exactly what she's looking for. So it's important for us as men is to find out who we are, discover who we are. And if you are in need of someone who can help you with discovering who you are, reach out to me. I've got a link on the screen there. It's bit.ly free 30-minute coaching. You can connect with me there for a free 30-minute coaching session, a strategy session, and we'll talk more about that. So that being said, guys, I'm going to say it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you. Hope this information has been insightful for you. Again, provoking as well, because the only way in most cases that we can make the changes that need to be made is that we're provoked to do them. These changes that we all will need to make, or different areas of our lives, they're not going to be changed, or we're not going to be compelled to change them out of a place of comfort. So know that there has to be some friction. You might be ticked off with me. You may have been triggered by some things. You may have tuned in and tuned out. Nevertheless, that is the beginning of change, is that it will prick us. It will trigger us. It would cause us to get upset with ourselves. Thank you, Brother Wayne. Great show, Brother Wayne says here over on LinkedIn. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Sharito. Longtime sister. Haven't seen you in a while, so I appreciate you as well. Thank you over on Substack, Robert Kennedy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Cyrus, for joining over on Substack as well. And for those who might be on, I didn't even check the comments here. Julia over on Facebook. Thank you, Julia. And Yolanda over on Facebook as well. Thank you both for tuning in. Hope this conversation has been a blessing to you. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to say good night. And remember, for the men, if you know someone who's interested, last thing I'm going to show you here is that I've got a United Impact Challenge for the men. It's a 30-day challenge for men. The link is on the screen. That's bit.ly/United Impact Challenge. Check out the site there for more information. I promise you will not be disappointed. But you do have to come with an appetite. You do have to come for a desire to change your situation. You got to come with a desire to say, "Hey, Curtis, I'm sick and tired of my stuff." You know, you got to come with a desire, with an appetite to change. And so that's where you're going to see the transformation. So that being said, guys, we're going to say ciao for now. We'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.